Shlump.
Hello everyone, Shlump here. This week, a patch for Shadow of the Tomb Raider on PS4 was released exclusively for PS5 owners. This patch allows the game to run at a 4K resolution with 60 FPS. I wanted to look at this update for Shadow of the Tomb Raider because I played 14 hours of the game on the PS5 back in January. That was when if you wanted to play the game at 60 FPS, you'd have to settle for a 1080p resolution. The game ran perfectly then, as you'd expect with the PS5's hardware, and now with a 4K patch for it being released, I wanted to revisit it to see how the experience has changed. When starting the game, make sure in the graphics settings you choose the resolution mode. That's what's going to enable you to play at 4K 60 FPS. Choosing performance mode will put you at 1080p 60 FPS. The resolution increase definitely is a noticeable change and for the better. The game looks much more visually appealing. When playing at 1080p, the game can appear as if the art style is going for a watercolor look sometimes, with all the jungle foliage seeming flat and without much textures. The game does use painted images for its scenic backdrops instead of 3D rendering, but a watercolor look is not what the game is going for. With the new 4K patch, the watercolor appearance is eliminated, allowing the game to truly show what it's supposed to look like. Foliage and building textures come across as much more detailed and textured, bringing out details not previously noticeable in the 1080p mode. As for the performance, the game is still locked at 60 FPS. I did, however, notice a possible slight frame rate when jumping into bodies of water. I don't have any tools to measure frame rates, but I'm really good at feeling frame rate drops, and right as Lara makes contact with the water, I feel the slightest little drop. I don't feel this drop when in the 1080p mode, and I also turned off vibration to make sure it wasn't throwing me off, but it was not. So a super minor thing that probably no one else would notice, but I wanted to mention it. Other than that, no FPS drops anywhere else I tested, even in the flooding scene, which is the hardest part of the game to run. Unfortunately, I accidentally deleted that part of the footage, and I can't just go back to it, capture it again due to how the game saves work. But I tested the opening of the game in much later parts. The frame rate is super smooth. Increasing the resolution seems to be the only thing this patch does. I didn't notice any other changes with this update, and the resolution is the only difference between the two modes now, one being 4K and the other being 1080p. I don't see why anyone would play the 1080p mode now, though I did notice that one slight drawback of having the increased resolution is that pop-in occurring in the distance is easier to notice, now that you can see back there more clearly, but it's not a big deal and isn't really noticeable. I think there's still a power line in the PS5 that's not being tapped into here. If the developers wanted to take Shadow of the Tomb Raider on PS5 one step further and make a native PS5 version of it, I would expect most graphics settings to be maxed out. Hopefully something like that does happen. But what we've got here is a good showcase of what PS5 backwards compatibility can do. The game already was impressive on PS5 before this new patch, because it made the 60 FPS mode an actual lock 60, whereas on the PS4 Pro, the 60 FPS target was rarely met. I was glad they included the 60 FPS mode on the PS4 Pro though, because once we got the news that the PS5 would be able to play PS4 games in a backwards compatibility enhanced mode, 60 FPS modes in games were welcomed and appreciated, even more than before, because if they didn't run too well on the PS4 Pro, then the PS5 would be able to smooth it out. And that's how I was able to play the game at a locked 60 FPS in January before the 4K patch. So, the 4K 60 patch for Shadow of the Tomb Raider makes the game much more enjoyable and fun to play, and is an update that is sure to be welcomed by all PS5 players. That's the story for Shadow of the Tomb Raider on PlayStation right now. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for more PS5 backwards compatibility videos. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.